Hey folks, I'm John Magerl,
And I'm Paul Bomba.
and this is Airwolf to Rewolf.
Do 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 do.
John, we are talking about sins of the past, getting deep into season two.
We're not as deep
What
as you'd like, brother. I'm we're 6 episodes in to a 22 season 22
a,
season
well, we're
episode
in the
run.
first. We just got out of the first quarter. You know what I mean?
But
We're in the second
you know
quarter.
what? This is. I see what you're doing. You're doing like the football coach thing, where you're like, we're going to take it in quarters, and we won now because we made it through the first
One play at a
episode.
time, John. The
One
old
play at a time,
adage:
baby.
one episode at a time.
So you
And I'm
decided to take the honor of the summary for this one. So sum it up, buddy. What do you got for us?
well. We find out that Dom has had a daughter that he lost custody of, I suppose, when she was about 7 years old. And they live where he grew up on the island of San Remo resort place. There's
Island
a
Nation
real
somewhere?
there's a real San Remo, which
Okay.
is in like, you know, it's on like the French coast or the Italian coast.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but that's
Cool.
I don't think that's what it is because we're not speaking French or Italian here. Where everybody speaks, American English. So it's just like a Caribbean island
Maybe it's
somewhere.
like a sci-fi thing where like everyone was speaking Italian, but they're just sort of translating for us.
Oh, they have like the universal translator, like in
Or like
Star
the camera
Trek.
does. The camera does. Like not. They don't
Yeah,
possess
but
the technology in San Remo.
String, what is String doing?
Drink speaking Italian.
Oh, strings. Okay. Well, okay. So, uh, we go back for this funeral. They take Airwolf. They have, Dom says, "Look, String, Archangel will be pretty upset if he finds out you're sticking your neck out for me because they have a job to do. Dom and String have a job to do for Archangel, but they got to go back to this funeral. They go to the funeral. Dom sees his ex-wife. Things don't go so well. They get back from the funeral, and the police are there. And and then they go fly off to Russia, 1,000 miles north of the Arctic Circle, to take some
Get some
photos.
pictures. Snap some pics. Yep.
They come back. Dom gets arrested. He gets arrested for the murder of his ex-wife. I mean, what the hell? Dom doesn't know what's going on. He's got a perfect alibi.
Well,
Archangel won't give him an alibi
one
because
moment. For those who are like, well, why would they think he killed them? Why did they think he killed her? They didn't have a good relationship. She was a little mean to him at the funeral. There was a bit of a confrontation, and then Santini went to go see her to get a locket back.
right, he wanted to. I mean, I didn't mention it because it's kind of inconsequential, right? But he goes, gets the locket. She says something like, "Dom, of all the mistakes I've made in my life, you're the one I regret the most." He goes, me too,
I'm sorry
lady, me
too.
too.
I'm sorry
I'm
too.
sorry too. And she goes, man, they always fall
Fall
for it.
for it. Yeah,
So
it was
anyway,
it was interesting.
she
Yeah, go
wasn't
ahead.
very nice to him. She
No,
wasn't nice to him.
she was a bit of a meanie.
So String goes back to find out what's going on. He finds out that this guy Darius is really behind all this, and Dominic's wife was possibly blackmailing him about this casino that he's running.
Hmm.
So they figure out what's going on, and Stringfellow Hook destroys the entire casino, sets it on fire, and blows it up. And then Dom is set free. I mean, there's some other stuff going on, but that's really what the story's about, isn't it, John?
Yeah, we get enough evidence that Jason Darius, who is the casino owner and baddie, is the real killer, and we get a interestingly motivated turn from a dirty captain cop into a superhero cop who then joins.
Well, I don't know if it was
Join,
he was a dirty cop. I mean, he said he was mostly good. He said he
oh
was
yeah, no, that
mostly good.
okay. That must be fine then. And then, but
But he's
then, but
just,
then he becomes like a, I won't go for this. You will be arrested, and the guy basically tries to have him killed, and that doesn't work out. So that's cool. And
no.
then it appears that the captain authorizes I think I put it in my notes as the expedited demolition of the casino via Airwolf, which seems like maybe a little above his pay grade. But hey, listen,
Yeah, like
it
Airwolf is
was a lot
like
of fun.
Airwolf is like hovering right next to the casino, and he's like, "All right, everybody's out.
Yeah.
Torch it." And he just like
It's like, wait a
lights the
second.
place up. Yeah, he just destroys the entire casino. Pretty
Uh-uh.
wild.
Yeah, it was a fun episode. There was a pretty big cast, which was interesting. That I'll get back to later when we talk about our thing. But
Well, let's just talk about our things right now. What's
let's
there to talk about?
let's talk about our thing.
What's your first big thing, John, about this episode? About sins of the past.
You brought it up. As a DM and that's Dungeon Master, I appreciated the shoehorning in of Dom's backstory. When it was needed. It was
You
just like
appreciated it?
we're just gonna we're gonna have Aaron here, who's gonna just do a lot of exposition at the beginning of the episode, kind of just explain this entire life that Dom had that we've never talked about. We've spent time with Dom. Dom's been a pretty central figure on the show, but wife, daughter, Dom had built a warm relationship with Shannon Doherty's character, was fatherly to her, and just let his daughter grow up. But they got it in there. They snappied it through. They were just like, here are the things you have to understand for this episode to work. We're going through it. Boom. They hired people who were charming when they talked, which made it, I think, more palatable. Because one of my other things would be they went big with the cast. I feel like them, and it was there, Paul. There's a big part of the episode, and I need to acknowledge it. One of my big things. So that's it for me. Any thoughts on the, as you put it, the canon drop in?
Well, I think you're right about the cast. I think the cast was great. What's his name that played Aaron? I love him. Where have I seen him before? It's
His last big part was the judge in Liar Liar. I looked him up. His name was Jason Bernard. Sadly, he passed away.
okay.
I think in the 90s. So he was all over. I mean, that's the thing. I did an IMDb search, and this is stepping on my second big thing a little bit. But maybe we can just get two of mine right out of the way. And, get a little crazy. But I looked up the cast, and we mentioned Jason Bernard. There was Brett Halsey. He played Jason Darius. There was Lila Santini was played by a woman named Diane McBain. Lola Albright played Beatrice Moretti, and Jason A. Watson Jr. played the captain. And all of them have 4 pages of TV work. Some of them having long runs on shows, 84-episode runs where they were clearly a cast regular. But especially the older ones, not Jason A. Watson so much. He was apparently still working. He had a credit in 2021. Great cast.
I think that's cool that you did that IMDb research. It was one of those things where it's like, man, I recognize this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Where have I seen him? And then I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he has just one of those faces. I suppose.
I mean, that's the thing. Remember, we used to sit around and I don't know about you, but in my house, those old shows were on in the background because they were the only thing on in the middle of the day if we were home. So I've watched a bunch of Love Boat episodes, or at least it's been on. You know what I mean? And there are just people who I recognize because they were regulars on all of those shows. That's how they made a living. That's not really around anymore, right? That sort of show is been replaced by reality TV, sort of.
There is really no more daytime TV system like there was, but there are also far more primetime quality shows going on.
Mm-hmm. Like art.
Any one of the shows that we see on the major streaming services could be a primetime type show. Don't you think?
A great many of them, yeah. Certainly. That's the thing.
The quality overall is probably a lot higher, but then you see stuff like what we just watched, where Airwolf actually torches a building, and I thought, wow, that looks like. I mean, that's not CGI. It's not CGI. What? That's some big budget stuff, man.
Yeah, no, I think it was probably model work. You think scale model work for the explosion? I mean, they certainly blew something up.
No, I don't think it was a scale model. I think it was pyrotechnics. Okay. I think they built that facade.
Yeah.
And they wrecked it, because we never saw a shot of Airwolf shooting the building. but we did see the reverse angle of Airwolf, and we
Yeah.
did see the front of the building getting hit by,
Mm-hmm.
I guess missiles or something.
Bullets or missiles, yeah.
There were like light laser missiles,
I don't know if you noticed this, but there felt like an odd shift in the relationship between them and Archangel in this episode, where all of a sudden they were like, "Ooh, we're not going to do the mission he gave us." Like, when did that start? Like,
well, yeah, and that's one of my big things. I guess that was my second big thing, but
let's
it's like,
go right to it.
but like the return of Archangel, like he just kind of came back in, and it was almost like he didn't skip a beat, but he was saying he was kind of saying, well, you got to listen to me, kind of. He had a kind of superior attitude, and from what I understood from the first 5 episodes of the season was that like they had been kind of taking a break from Archangel. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think if you're Alex Cord and you're sitting on your bum for the first 5 episodes of a season, you're thinking, oh geez, I might be getting written out of this thing. But
Maybe.
here he was, and he didn't have a big part in this episode.
No.
But he was present, and this was really one of the few episodes of Airwolf that we really had Airwolf without Airwolf. The helicopter featured very little in this episode.
Yeah, it's a transport for the vast majority of the episode, and then it's just like, I'm gonna blow
at the
up.
end, they decide they're gonna blow up a building, but that part seemed completely irrelevant, right?
It felt rushed at the end, honestly. It felt like they had sort of like, that's why I made point of the cop like turning, just like we don't even see the turn really. Like Hawk yells at him, and the next thing he's getting his butt kicked trying to arrest Darius, and then they blow up the building. It's like, okay, well that escalated quickly. I mean,
everything escalated quickly.
Yeah,
everything escalated quickly.
Like Aaron gets killed. That happens, right? They kill Aaron.
Right. He's like, come to the house. I want to show you something. He's like, tell me over the phone. He's like, no, come to the house. And then he gets to the house, and the two heavies are like listening to a tape deck, which is Darius is the one who killed
me. It's literally Lila from the dead saying, "No, my murderer was Jason Darius." So then now we know who all the bad guys are. So now it just becomes an action, like we're just heading to the climax. Now,
we see Aaron at that point laying on the floor, ostensibly dead.
Full of blood. I mean, it didn't look good.
Didn't look good. And then they have this weird chase scene, which was great, which was a couple of fistfights, and then first String runs out of the house and he tries to jump in his red Jeep, and then he punches them a little bit, and then he sees a moped and he jumps on the moped, and then they like get in front of him, and he like does one of these things as he's driving by on the moped, and he punches them both at the same time. They both go falling over like bowling pins. And then they carjack a guy, and they jump in his Chevy, and they chase him. And then String hits a curb, and he goes flying over the curb. And then they catch up to him on the beach, and they're beating the shit out of him on the beach. And in the background, there's a couple that's like standing there watching him getting beat up. And then at one point, they're like, all right, well, I'm bored of this. And they just like walk away.
They just drag him off. They don't just walk away. They drag him. They kidnap him.
Yeah, they're dragging him off, and this couple is just like, "Oh, okay, well, that's cool," and they just walk away.
Hey, nice beach. Yeah, that was interesting. And then there's they're on the boat. They're gonna throw him off the boat, not far enough into the ocean to get him killed, I guess. Then they cut his rope, which ends up making sense because if you don't want it to look like you murdered him, you can't have his arms tied behind him.
Sure. Right? Or you could just tie a rock around his,
Well, that's pretty. That becomes apparent too if you if they find him with the tar.
If they find him, but I mean, okay, sure.
That's what I wrote in my head to make it make sense that they clearly cut his bangs.
My thinking was they were gonna beat him up, rough him up a little bit, throw him in the water, and then shoot him.
Or I mean, honestly, at that point, you just knock him out. If they had been faster and cut it and hit him over the head with something and pushed him over, then that would have worked.
Right, but he also did one of these.
Yeah, but then Hawk Fu gets him away, and then he dives into the water. And the next scene is the not a dirty cop finding him.
No, because then they shoot into the water, right? He shoots into the water.
Yeah, but that's not going to get the Hawk.
The guy is like, that got him.
Yeah, we got him. Don't worry about it. He'll never make it back. He can't just swim to shore.
Big
apparently.
mistake. Little do you
Yeah.
know that Hawk is going to be receiving mouth to mouth on the beach from.
So yeah, so he's fine. Hawk is fine. He gets back to the beach, and then now he knows who the bad guy is, and he has Airwolf, and once again heading to blowing up a building. Yay! Jason Darius is arrested. He can rot in jail while we release Santine.
Okay, so,
wait.
do you want to do you want to do your third big thing, or you want me to do my third?
Sure. I'll do my third big thing. I'll do my third big thing, and that's going to be they were cooking this episode. All right, the writer.
They were what? Cooking?
They were killing it. They were killing it. Borgnine was just fucking eating up the scenery in some of those jail scenes. Like, I loved it. Wait, murderers they let go.
Me they keep in a
cage. He was going for it, man. Borgnine was doing it. The last scene where he stares at the locket, saying goodbye to his daughter.
Was that a
was it twins?
I
don't know why they were
an
two of the
Empire
same
Strikes
girl.
Back moment? Was that There Is Another kind of thing? Was that There Is Another?
I chose to whistle right past that because I don't want to think about it, and then I just openly acknowledged the message the show wanted me to have, which is Dom is fine because he has a new family in Caitlin and Hawk. So happy ending, everything's great because that's how it works.
Yeah, that was my big thing, which was like Airwolf at the end, like the end sequence was like, we've seen this before, right?
Yeah.
Where Stringfellow starts pulling the trigger and somehow miraculously he isn't killing dozens of civilians.
Okay. Maybe this is where we transition for what's so 80s. Because that is an 80s action show movie thing. Even cartoons. We watched G.I. Joe where everyone shot at each other, things blowed up constantly.
Right.
Always a parachute. Everyone's fine. No one died.
Yep.
18. Machine guns. Constant. Nobody died. That just wouldn't fly anymore. That's just not an accepted form anymore. That ridiculous, just irresponsible. I guess all of our irresponsible gun use has gone into the real world, so they took it out of the movies. Maybe is that?
Oh, are you somehow saying that perhaps the Second Amendment should be rethought in some way?
Oh no! I think the Second Amendment's fine. I think the people who interpret it as a blanket allowance, on any sort of firearm are being insane.
No, John. You know, and I know what a well-regulated militia is. So my big, this is the 80s thing.
Let's go back to the show.
And it's debatable whether this is about being in the 80s or this is about just a big thing with the episode. But what the fuck was up with the dialogue in this episode?
I mean, what was so brilliant about it? It was over the top. Do you think maybe there was they had all these really kind of at least semi-stars and they had their own writers coming in and punching stuff up or something?
No, John. No. You know what it was? It's we got to get this thing shoehorned into 44 minutes.
There was a little bit of that, yeah.
And we need to we need to paint this picture right away. Like when we first are introduced to Layla at the funeral, she's making these snide remarks to Dom at the funeral.
Yeah.
It's and then they actually get into an altercation at the funeral.
He shakes her. Yeah.
So it's this kind of dialogue writing. I don't know. It was weird. It was just weird.
Well,
the prison scene where we talked about earlier, where Dom is saying, "Oh, they put me in a cage." That was so over the top.
It was very over the top. It was like I said, Dom.
And Aaron turned to Stringfellow and being like, "Well, she's a slut, and she had it coming to her." The dialogue was nuts, man. Dialogue was nuts.
It was big. It was dramatic. It was. I don't know, man. I didn't hate it. I thought it was fun. I thought they were pulling it off. Like, well, okay, Borgnine was surfing the wave, but he, I think he mostly stayed up. You know, like at least it wasn't. It was interesting, right? Because the show's built around a mystery, but like the detective doesn't do anything except go from actor to actor to give exposition that they need. Like, and it's not really like it's not like he talks to Beatrice Moretti and that leads him back to the house. It's just he gets a call from Aaron and he goes. Like, there's no connection really between like he's not figuring stuff out except things about Dom's backstory. Like he's learning about Dom as he travels through this mystery, and it sort of doesn't like it's like a mystery without a detective or without any like cohesive narrative going through the whole thing that helps him figure it out.
It's like a mystery without a mystery.
He
John.
just sort of it's just sort of like here's the answer over the course of the episode. It's like that's not how this usually works. Usually it's like he's clever and like asks a really insightful question and then all of a sudden and there's a little bit of that, but it's pretty
Not
light.
really. You know, we have kind of the red herring of the tennis instructor guy. That's
Yeah.
kind of like a brief little kind of false flag, but
Yeah. But it's not a false flag. He's a baddie. He's on the boat. They're really gonna throw him off and murder him. I mean he's a baddie too. I mean he's not cool. So I that character like I'm sorry that I recognize that guy's face too, but like I really didn't enjoy him. So I didn't look him up.
well, his serve needed a little work, you know.
It was just it wasn't his fault. It's a character that I never really enjoy. Like the tennis pro, like the tennis pro sleeping with all the married women kind of character. It's almost Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing, but much less charming. You know.
Well, I think that really just about wraps it up for this episode, John. I mean,
Yeah,
we you know we kind of covered all our bases. Any final thoughts? Overall?
I like that the show tries different things, right? I really do. It's an ambitious show. Hey, folks, thanks for listening to us ramble on about this whole great show. Like and subscribe, comment, do all the things. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
GN guys, GN.